So we need to get IP address information onto each of our PCs so that we can communicate over the network. Something else that you want to use is DNS. The DNS system, the domain name system, is the system that allows us to look up things by friendly names instead of IP addresses. Think about it. When you want to visit CBT Nuggets, you open a web browser and you put in CBT Nuggets. You don't have to memorize the IP address of CBT Nuggets, thank goodness. In this nugget, let's solve a couple of problems. Let's make sure we can get IP address information on systems very easily, and let's make sure that those systems can look up stuff by friendly names. So here I clicked the little search field on my Windows 10 machine and I typed in control panel, and it brought me to this control panel. Now notice it's viewing by category. So everything's kind of lumped together here, and there's network and internet. I don't really like this. I like either large or small icons. I like things broken out so I can see what options I have. And notice now one of them is very specifically the Network and Sharing Center. When I come in here, we're interested in taking a look at the IP settings that are on my adapter. So I go to Change Adapter Settings here. Now notice what I've done on my machine, and I highly recommend you do this with your computer as well. I've disabled, that's right click, and I chose disabled for those particular network potential adapters that I don't want to use. Bluetooth on this particular device, I don't need it. I disabled it. This Cisco AnyConnect Secure Mobility Client is to make secure connections back to CBT Nuggets headquarters, and I don't need that right now. I'm going to disable it. Sure, I can enable it when I need it. Here's some VMware virtual Ethernet adapters. I'm not doing anything right now with VMware on this machine, so what a great idea to keep these things we're not utilized for networking disabled. Now I am using my Wi-Fi connection in order to utilize this computer so we can see it's enabled, and Microsoft did a really cool thing for us. This little icon right here shows these bars of signal strength. So we can literally see that I've got a good strong Wi-Fi signal just by looking at this icon. Now, we're interested in what is going on with the IP information on this device, and most importantly, how did I gain that IP address information? If I right-click and go to Properties, the Wi-Fi Properties window will come up, and sure enough, here's a category dedicated to the important Internet Protocol version 4. That's right, TCP/IP version 4 information that makes networking a reality on this machine. If I choose the Properties button, we'll go in and see the details, and look at this. Right away, we see what we're interested in this particular nugget. How are we going to gain our IP address information? Notice there is two options. To obtain an IP address automatically, in fact, let me get out my pen because that equals something really important. That equals, come on pen, you can work, there we go. This equals, this option right here, the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Obtaining an IP address automatically means that a DHCP server is going to be on the network and is going to give me that information. But wait a minute, I'm at home right now. I'm in my home office right now. How was there a DHCP server available to give me my information? Another great question that we have here is, what is my information? I don't see any information here listed for what I got. I'll show you that in just a moment in this nugget. Notice, how are we going to get the address of our domain name server? It says to get that automatically. Yep, you guessed it. That means it's DHCP that's going to provide us with that information as well. By the way, a moment ago I asked you, how is this working for me? I'm at my small office, home office. You better believe it. The access point that the internet service provider installed for Wi-Fi in my home has DHCP server functionality built in, and it's giving me my address. By the way, my provider is Verizon, one of the huge companies that provides internet access to small office home offices. Your company may be someone different for your home, but chances are you're getting your IP information you need automatically thanks to this dynamic host configuration protocol. You're getting the IP address you need, the subnet mask you need, the default gateway that you need, and a preferred and maybe even an alternate DNS server so that you can communicate properly on the network. So cool. So we notice here that I could go in and I could say, nope, don't want to use DHCP. And when I click this use the following IP address, it does the same for DNS. It comes down here and it highlights these fields so we can manually put the information in. Now, manually putting the information in would be a little bit of work here for me. Imagine if there was 20 machines I had to do it for. Imagine if there was 200 machines I had to do it for. Imagine if there was 20,000 machines I had to do that for. The only way you'd want to have that job would be if you were being paid by the hour. That would be the only way you'd want to go through that pain, let me tell you. Also, think about it. You could make a mistake when typing in the address, and that would cause communication problems. So boy, oh boy, do we love DHCP. We love this option of obtaining this information we need automatically. Now let me show you something else that's cool. Notice there's this alternate configuration tab. This is so cool. If the DHCP server isn't available, we'll get some temporary IP address information. We can add that ourselves, or the default option is shown here. It's what's called automatic private IP addressing. It has a really cool acronym, APIPA. Try it. It's so fun to say. APIPA. So automatic private IP addressing would kick in if our DHCP server is not available on our network. You can tell an automatic IP address right away because it starts with 169. So if we see that we have an address of 169, we know, there's actually a problem on our network most likely because we're getting the automatic private IP address. And this brings us back to something that I mentioned a moment ago in this nugget and promised I'd cover with you. What is our information? I mean, that's kind of strange about this, isn't it? It says, okay, if there's a problem with DHCP, you'll get automatic private IP address. It says to use DHCP, but nowhere here do we see the IP address information we actually possess. Let me do this. Let me cancel this. Let me right-click this Wi-Fi connection, and instead of properties, let me choose status. By the way, that's in bold because if I double-click this, I'll get this status indication. And let's see. It says, okay, we have Internet IPv4 connectivity. If I choose details, aha, finally, we see the address information that I've been given. Look at this. Are we DHCP enabled? The answer is yes, we are. Did we get an IP address? The answer is yes, we did. It's 192.168.116. We have been given a IPv4 subnet mask. That's great. We need that. We need a default gateway. We've been given that. We need a DNS server. We've been given that. We've been given it from a DHCP server at this address right here. So we can go in and visually inspect the DHCP information that we've received. There's a favorite way by network engineers to get that information though, because that was kind of a lot of steps that I had to go through to find it, and that is to bring up a command prompt on the Windows system and run a very special command called ipconfig. Let me show it to you. So there's our command prompt, and I type ipconfig, and it says, okay, for your wireless LAN adapter, you've been given an IPv4 address, you've been given a subnet mask, you've been given a default gateway. Wait a minute here. They're leaving out like what DNS server IP address was I given? So we can find that easy by saying ipconfig, and we can say, /all. We want more information, more details, please. And remember, we were interested in this for the wireless LAN adapter. Now we can see even more information, including the fact that it gave us a DNS server of 192.168.1.1. Thank goodness we have DNS. We want to make sure we have DNS, and let me show you why right now. Remember, systems communicate by IP address, but we as humans don't want to go around memorizing IP addresses. So the domain name system allows us to use names. Can you imagine what a nightmare browsing would be if we had to go to this browser and say 199.181.132.250 to get to a particular location? In this case, it's Disney. Can you imagine what a nightmare that would be? I mean, we'd have to have like an address book with all those IP addresses written down, correlating to the websites that we love to visit. The DNS system handles resolving a name to a particular number, to a particular IP address, and that is why we need that service. So let's you and I wrap up this nugget with a pop quiz. You ready? You check the IP address on your father's computer, and it is 169.254.254.20. What is the most likely problem? A, the operating system needs a patch. B, there is a firewall blocking the internet. C, the DHCP server is down. Or D, the DNS server is down. Well, first of all, it's so sweet of you to help your father with his computer. I know, you're quickly becoming the computer guy for your family. It happens to all of us. Second of all, do you notice something about the IP address that your dad has? Yep, it's 169. That 169 is our clue. This is the automatic private IP addressing that we mentioned in this nugget. What does it most likely mean? Well, operating systems always need patches, but I think we have a better answer here. There's a firewall blocking the internet. Well, I guess there could be a firewall blocking our access to DHCP, and that is the most likely problem here. We are not getting our DHCP information, so the machine is creating its own IP address information using the APIPA. Remember how much we love to say it? That's what's happening. DNS server down? No, that would be a case if we're going to a browser and attempting to access a great resource that's out there, and this returns some kind of error. So we really have arrived at the best answer here, and that is the most likely scenario of something's amiss with DHCP. Now, the exam author here is saying the server is down, but that could mean any number of things. The DHCP server could be misconfigured, for example, and we're not getting our information correctly. DHCP, though, is the key, as we can see in this particular pop quiz question. So how are you going to get the IP address information on your system so that you can communicate on the network? And by network, I could be referring to the largest of all known networks to man, the internet itself. You have two options. You could go in there and you could, three options. You could go in there and you could manually or statically configure your IP address information. You could allow the device to create its own with the automatic private IP addressing feature. Or the most likely scenario is that you get the information automatically utilizing a dynamic host configuration protocol or DHCP server. One of the key pieces of information that DHCP server is going to give you is the IP address of your DNS server. And we, of course, love the fact that we get to use a DNS server in our network so that when we are communicating with websites or even other computers, we can reference them by name instead of that big, long, ugly IP address. I sure hope this nugget on DHCP and DNS was informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.